So yesterday we touched on the fact that there is a big sort of rumor going around in reform land where Kent is meant to become this crown jewel of Reform UK. It is meant to be the new Reform Shangri-La. That this is how good you could have it if you too had a Reform UK council. And not just that, but if Reform UK can like transform Kent this much, well, oh my God, how amazing would it be if they were in national government? And hence why we are now seeing a lot, and I mean a lot of pressure, and we touched on it yesterday, going on in Kent County Council. Not only have we seen, of course, a recent cabinet reshuffle, after what, 45 days, someone got shuffled out saying, oh, but we want to put the best people we can in possible. Then why did he get the position in the first place when he only lasted 45 days? And not only that, but you aren't even doing anything on these councils. You know, Kent is another example of where you're meant to be having these committee meetings, these cabinet meetings, chairing these things, and they're just not happening. The council is literally frozen in place, unable to take decisions. And that in itself has consequences. So you're in that classic thing of, oh, but Reform UK aren't doing anything. Oh, surely that must be good. No, that is just as bad because they are paralyzing the council and it is unable to take any big decisions or eventually do anything because the previous administration's policy and their spending stuff and their decisions only go so long, maybe until towards the end of this year. So Reform are running out of time. They've got to actually start doing stuff. And not only this, but we are also seeing as well, we'll get into a moment because Farage was down in Kent where he was talking about some of these reform councillors and stuff like this. Again, lending that big credence to that theory that you want it to be like, you know, this is my big jewel. Look how good Kent is, type of thing. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Kent goes. And I think Kent really is now the council to keep the eye on, because if this is what Farage wants to sell, especially next year, of course, we've got another big local election in 2026 of May, so obviously that'll be a big one. But then, of course, other things as well. So, yeah, interesting times ahead, of course, for Kent County Council. And, of course, somewhere where we said before we will be keeping an eye on. So, before, of course, we do get into this and, of course, what was said at that press conference, please do remember to click on the like, share, and, of course, subscribe button. And, of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and, of course, as always, there is the YouTube membership button down below as well. So thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. And, of course, it is Wednesday as well, so there will be a new video for the Patreon and, of course, the YouTube members as well. So if you want to sign up to that and see that video and you want to see all the rest of the videos that we've made as well, like I say, join up to those and you'll get full access to all those as well. So let us now crack on into this. This actually comes from the National Scot. So Reform councillors were shocked that they won their seats, says Farage. Again, shocked. Even then, no excuse, because you should probably go into an election maybe assuming the fact that you might win and that you might be in charge and that you might have all this responsibility. Anyway, Nigel Farage puts a reform-led council's slow start down to his party's needing a big rethink on local government in the wake now of cancelled meetings. Again, we're having just a big rethink on local government. Rethinking what exactly? What exactly are we rethinking? What? At the local council elections, of course, on May, Reform won over 57 of the 81 seats now on offer at Kent County Council, which, of course, led to many now shocked new councillors. Since then, the Kent County Council opposition leader, Anthony Hooks, says that most committees have not met once. adding that no key decisions have now been taken. Again, how can you run a council where you've got no committees meeting? That means no scrutiny, no council oversight, no decisions on maybe vital areas or things that decisions need to be making. Just because they are doing nothing does not mean it is good. It's just as bad. It is just as bad. So on Monday, Farage, of course, visited Kent County Council, where he was met by the leader, Lyndon Carman, for now an update on the authorities' work. And this is where, again, this whole idea that he's now putting pressure, that Farage has gone in to meet them, saying, hey, I want this to be my crown jewel. You need to shape up. Which, again, if you look at yesterday's video we did, led to the, again, apparent not firing of the highways guy. So, again, very interesting things on that one, isn't it? So, after, of course, the meeting, he told a PA news agency that we are, of course, very proud, of course, of the election result, the stunning number of seats that we won, and, of course, way more than of course, we thought. So there were an awful lot of shocked new councillors walking here just a few weeks ago. We've established a cabinet. We've got a full council meeting on this Thursday, which will be our first big savings will now be announced. Oh, so look forward to probably on either Thursday or Friday news about whatever this Doge unit is meant to be bringing forward. That's for sure. Because again, once it's apparently done down in Kent, then it will be doing a tour of the country. So yeah, we'll probably be able to see what that means. However, as we saw a couple of again videos ago, we saw their big cut they want to make is to adult social care. Let's see how long those stand before they get legally challenged on that or keep on getting sued, and it costs these councils just so much money in being sued because they're denying statutory public services. Anyway, it continued. On the whole, of course, you're very slow, of course, at get going. We're not a conum term. We are not here to do exactly what's been done before. We need a rethink on the way local government in Kent works, and we're getting bedded in. We're making progress. But again, they're not doing anything. That's the thing. They're not doing anything. There is no progress being made at all. On Kent County Council's website, its meeting calendar shows that almost 50% of the meetings in June and July were cancelled. So why have you cancelled like over 50% of your meetings in 2 months? That's not good. Ms. Carman then went to point out that these were meetings, of course, set up by the previous administration, and there was, quote, no way the new reform councillors could have stuck to that schedule. What's stopping them sticking to that schedule? That's their part of their job now, you know? Anyway, this is the excuse for not sticking to the schedule. She said those meetings were, of course, set for May and June. Clearly, 57 new councillors to get appointed now to the cabinet, get a deputy cabinet, and get to grips with now their portfolio. Clearly, there was no way on God's earth, with all the greatest will in the world, that they were going to be able to get in with all the cabinet ministers and committees in place sorted out. Strange that other councils have done it, right? Strange that pretty much every single other council manages to do this, except this one. Like, even other reform councils have managed to get these people appointed. And yeah, they've had the first lot of cabinet meetings. We've seen meetings and committees be cancelled as well. But then there are other councils that do this, even with new councillors. Like, how? Again, this is just an absolute failing on reform's part. She then went on to add that it, of course, would, quote, take time for councillors to work out how to do their jobs in the new administration. Well, again, maybe they should have worked that out beforehand. The leader of the opposition, Mr. Hook, said that the election, of course, in May We're just now 2 months in, and most committees have not even met once. No new key decisions have been taken. Real people are now suffering while reform councillors dither, delay, and do anything except the job they were elected to do. The problems are now urgent, and the Liberal Democrats are now demanding action to improve the services people depend upon. And again, he is right to say that, because he is right. There are no decisions, there are services, and there are people suffering because they do not have access to those services, or potentially being denied or delaying or dithering on those because they are not doing the job they were elected to do. Remember, the reform ran on a platform at that local election that they would come in and that all these councillors would hit the ground running. As we keep on saying, they've hit the ground, just not running. They've hit it more face first. During, of course, his visit, Farage also criticised the UK government's plan to restructure local government and told his party councillors to, quote, fight tooth and nail against the plans. Why? Because this limits his council win, basically. This limits the council win. It limits the seats he has access to. Getting rid of some of these smaller councils, making them into a larger unitary government, unitary like local council, makes it better. Problem is, that means he then loses seats. Maybe Reform then aren't in control of those new councils. You can see why he's fighting against it. And bear in mind, he's no idea why these restructures are happening in the first place. Most of it is down to population shifts, because there aren't enough people in that area anymore for like a local unit authority to even justify it in some cases, especially in some rural areas where there has been some, depopulation. But anyway, this is what he had to say about it. He said, if people out there, of course, in the street knew what was, of course, being proposed, they would be against it. So we will now launch a campaign on this to try an education campaign, said Mr. Farage. But people know this isn't something new. This isn't something that's being quietly done. They've been talking about this for well over a year. The sad fact is that most people do not care about what goes on their local council. Those people probably don't know because they ain't paying attention to what goes on in their local council, which again is sad because I've said this before and I will make this point every single time. What goes on in your local council is just as important as what goes on in Westminster. But he wanted to add, I feel, of course, the county feel very strongly, as I do, that we may very well take that into a referendum. And again, they're going to waste thousands of pounds to do a decision that has already been made. Anyway, Kent and, of course, Medway were not selected to be part of the government's devolutionary priority programme, which would, of course, include a mayor. However, there are now moves towards now turning their two-tier system of district and county council into a divided unitary authorities, which Reform's council leader calls it now a bit communistic. A bit communistic? What? Okay. Anyway, Ms. Carman said, I do worry that local government restructuring carves us up into a bit of unitary authorities. It's a bit, and it just strikes me as a little bit communistic. You're taking your power away from people to elect their district councillors, their county councillors, their town councillors, and you're basically passing it now up the chain. But they would still be electing councillors. They just wouldn't be district councillors, or, there'd be more county councillors in charge of wider other areas because of, again, depopulation. This isn't some secret plan to bring about some communist area. Again, it's a bit weird to describe it that way. But there you go. The government has, of course, argued that unitarian local governments can now enhance the ability now of making it far easier now for residents to understand, of course, who is responsible now for public services and local decisions. Again, I would argue that as well, because down in Kent, especially if you have a look at the local government map down there, it gets very confusing about who and what actually is in charge of of different things. So yeah, simplifying it, maybe sort of shifting these into a larger sort of county council makes sense. But why a reform against this? Because that means in some of these places, they lose power. And it's not just here. We've seen this. We saw, I covered a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months back now, a load of Labour people quit because, they weren't being reselected. Why weren't they being reselected? Because their county council, so their district council that they're on, ceases to exist when it gets amalgamated into a bigger unitary authority. And rather than saying, we want to run for those positions on the unitary authority, they were going, no, we want to run our positions on this county council. But it's not going to exist anymore. So, yeah, interesting, of course, that they are doing that. And of course, we want to bring this to a referendum. Ken, that is going to be a gigantic waste of money, where we've already seen in these areas that are having this amalgamation that they've gone out, they've spoken to the public, they've done consultations, and guess what? The people have already decided that actually going to these unitary authorities would be better. The Reform Care, no, we want a referendum, because if this does happen, then we lose councillors, then we may not be in charge of this area. And as I've said, Nigel Farage wants Kent specifically to be his crown jewel. That's why he paid it a visit. That's why, again, he's putting pressure on them. So, interesting things quite possibly happening down in Kent. But as always, thank you very much, of course, for watching. Please do remember to hit the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, as always, there's links down below if you want to help support the channel another way. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.